Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of The Crazy World We Die In. Today I'm going to be talking about the recent passing of John Amos. From a personal point of view, this is quite a sad death for me. John Amos was somebody that I knew growing up from a variety of different roles, and I will talk about some of those roles and what they meant to me from a personal point of view. Guys, if you haven't been here before, welcome, and if you've been here before, welcome back. So John Amos was born in 1939. So regarding his passing, there were some slight discrepancies which was initially reported. So it was reported that he died on October the 1st, 2024. Subsequently, it has come out that he died on August the 21st, 2024. I will talk about the possible reasons for that a bit later in this video. So John Amos, where is he most famous for? Like I said, he's been in a variety of roles. Most people probably know him from Roots. He was the adult Kunta Kinte. Some people know him from Die Hard 2. Some people know him from a film which I love called Let's Do It Again, which is where I know him from originally. But probably most people will remember John Amos as being Mr. McDowell in Coming to America. Another place where a certain generation might know John Amos from is from the television show Good Times. So I'm just going to talk about John Amos and his early life. So before acting, John Amos was involved in a number of different things. So he was into American football. At one point he signed for the Denver Broncos. Sadly, this wasn't a career which panned out, and this was due to an injury where he had to run the 40-yard dash, but he couldn't due to an issue with a pulled hamstring. One thing I learned about John Amos as well is that he has a degree in sociology and was actually a social worker for a period of time in New York. Another fact I've learned is that he was into boxing and was a Golden Gloves boxing champ. So if I start off with Good Times, so Good Times was a popular television series and it starred John Amos as the father of a African American family. So Good Times was about an African American family living in Chicago and the hardships that they have to go through. So Good Times consisted of 6 seasons and 133 episodes, and it was actually the first sitcom that featured a 2-parent African American family. The eldest son was called JJ and he was played by an actor called Jimmy Walker. So this is quite relevant to this video because I talk about a film and I've talked about it in another video with James L. Jones, and the film I'm talking about is a film called Let's Do It Again, which is one of my favourite films of all time. Now, Jimmy Walker was actually in Let's Do It Again and he plays Bootney Farnsworth. If you've seen the film, you know who that is. It's one of the boxers. So he's worked with John Amos before, and Jimmy Walker, funnily enough, has a small role. So if you're familiar with the, I think it's the 1981 film Airplane, the comedy, which again is another one of my favourites, he has a very small part. Now, you may have seen that film and you may know who Jimmy Walker is and be thinking, hold on, where is he in that film? So before the plane takes off, Captain Over and co-pilot Murdoch, I think Murdoch's there, Murdoch may not be there yet, but he's in the cockpit and Jimmy Walker basically lifts up the bonnet of the plane, checks the measurements and then tries to close it. And if you remember the scene, he tries to push it down with his hands and he can't. So in the end, he sort of jumps on it, but as a result, he sort of flies off the plane and lands on the floor. It's quite a small scene, but when I saw him, I instantly knew who he was. Also, on another note, so if you're familiar with The Chronic, which is Dr. Dre's first album, there's a skit on there called the $20 Sack Pyramid. Now, it's quite a funny skit, and there's 2 contestants. It's like a game show, and one of those contestants is called Bootney Farnsworth, which is from Let's Do It Again. So going back to Good Times, John Amos didn't see out all 6 seasons. He was openly critical about how the family were portrayed, especially JJ, and how he was sort of stereotypically portrayed as a bit of a joker, a bit of an idiot. And because he was so open with his criticisms, they decided to write him off. So they didn't give him a leave of absence. He was basically killed off in, I believe it was season 4, but I might be wrong. So we move on to 1977 and John Amos starred in Roots. So Roots consisted of 8 episodes and John Amos played the adult Kunta Kinte, who is the main character of the show. Roots was a very popular series, very hard hitting some of the material that it contained, and it was so popular that it actually had 2 sequels. Roots starred some very established and well-known actors. So some of the people who were in Roots were James L. Jones, Mad Sinclair, Lloyd Bridges, you may know him from Airplane, George Stanford Brown. Now, if there's any fans of House Party 2, he was the professor in the university that kid goes to. Louis Gossett Jr. So you may know him from being in An Officer and a Gentleman, which was quite a popular film starring Richard Gere, and Maya Angelou. Now I'm going to move on to Let's Do It Again, and I won't labour on this too much, but this is where I was first introduced to John Amos. Now John Amos plays a character by the name of Kansas City Mac, and he's one of the bad guys in the film, and he has a crew. And interestingly, one of the people from his crew is called Bubble Top. Now you may recognise the actor. His real name is Julius Harris, and you may have seen him in a number of programs. So you may know him from Live and Let Die, where he plays the character Teehee, and he has a pinchers for a hand or claw, if that's what you want to call it. So we then move to 1988, and then we've got Coming to America. Now, Coming to America, brilliant film, great cast, Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, and others. So he plays Mr. McDowell, who is the father of Lisa, who's Eddie Murphy's character's love interest. He does have some funny moments in the film. For me, one of the times I remember is when Daryl keeps coming to the door. This is at this point, Mr. McDowell has learned that Akeem is a prince, and he's basically trying to get rid of Daryl. He keeps running back and forth to the front door, and eventually I think he gets the dog to attack Daryl. Other films that he was in, so he was in Lock Up with Sylvester Stallone. He was in a film called Ricochet, which is a film I quite like. It was with, it's one of Denzel Washington's earlier films, but I really like that film. He was also in Players Club. Along with films, he's also done quite a lot of TV work, so people may remember him. And a friend recently reminded me that he had a small part in a couple of episodes, I believe, of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He also had small parts in A-Team, Murder, She Wrote, The Cosby Show, Beauty and the Beast, and had a recurring role in West Wing. Now I'm just going to touch on his personal life. So John Amos was married twice. He was married between 1965 and 1975, and from that marriage he had 2 children, Shannon and Casey, and he remarried between 1978 and 1979. Now, John Amos's passing was announced by his son Casey, and the cause of death was shown as heart failure. However, no autopsy was performed, and 9 days after his death, he was cremated. Now, Shannon revealed that she learned about this at the same time as the general public. So straight away, I must admit, when I read that, I thought that's strange, because if your father's died, you don't want to hear it at the same time as the general public. You would think something like that will be made known to you, or you'll be one of the first people to hear. So I must admit I was a bit surprised at that, and I thought I need to do a bit more research into it. I won't go into War and Peace, but it looks like Casey and Shannon have been bickering for years. It all revolves around John Amos's welfare. Shannon has raised a couple of points. So one of the things that was mentioned was that at the hospital his daughter was present. Now Shannon is his only daughter, and she wasn't present at the hospital. So Shannon believed that a publicist by the name of Belinda Foster was the person posing as his daughter. Subsequently, Foster has countered this argument by stating that her and John Amos had such a good relationship that he often referred to her as his daughter. Another thing that Belinda has mentioned, due to the fighting between Casey and Shannon, that John Amos requested that when he did pass away, the details of his death was held back from the general public. And the reason why Shannon wasn't told this is because apparently there was a court order for 2023 where there could be no contact between the siblings. One could argue that maybe somebody else could have told Shannon and not Casey. Another thing that Belinda said was that John Amos had concerns that if Shannon learnt about his death, she would turn it into a bit of a circus, and that's one thing he didn't want. Again, we're only hearing one side of the story, but I think it is quite interesting when you look at both sides and see what they have to say on the matter. So guys, that was my tribute to John Amos. For me, it is a really sad time that he's no longer with us. I had a lot of time for John Amos, and like I said, I remember him as a little kid watching Let's Do It Again. He's somebody I instantly recognise, and it's just sad that he's no longer here. Guys, if you like this content, if you could do me a favour, press that like button, press that subscribe button, and if you've got any comments to make, please put them in the comment section. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Crazy World We Die In. Take care.